So, it's spring now. I don't know about many of you, but I love spring a lot. Because it just, the whole concept of renewal seems to flow really well in spring for me. Maybe I'm attached to it because I was born in spring, but I will tell you it's challenging for me because I experience allergies. I don't know if any of you are experiencing allergies, but yes, it's kind of irritating. So I'm taking a medication for it, and so it tends to dry your mouth out. So bear with me if I drink a lot of water. So the sacred vessels of the church are to be treated with special care and reverence. A grain is transformed into flour, and the flour is incorporated with other ingredients that is transformed into bread. And then we bring that bread to the church, we ask a blessing upon it, and it's transformed into the works of Christ. The vessels that are laid out at the altar here today start out with simple plates and cups and bowls. But as they serve our bread and the fruit of the vine to us, they have been transformed into something more than these simple household appliances. They are our sacred vessels. Mm-hmm. As you have been formed and have come into existence, so has God created you to be a holy vessel. And you are to be treated with special care and reverence. I think sometimes as our life journey goes through, we kind of tend to forget to treat ourselves with special care. To show a little reverence for the life that we live. And I think possibly we carry that own messaging that's in our heart as we form relationships with others. And occasionally may do the same for another. When we were born, we began our life's journey as a sacred vessel with a little love to start our journey. Our journey takes us away from God and closer to the world around us. So all the worldly things that surround us really affect us and we take that in. Through our life's experience, we are filled as holy vessels. Sometimes we are filled with good and righteous things. But then there is times when we are filled with spoiled and unhealthy things. Sometimes we are filled with good things that eventually go to waste or go bad. So I took an example. I wanted to use this as a kind of a visual. I think visuals are helpful. So this is us. And as we were being formed, God said, well, I know I'm sending you on a journey. But I'm going to give you a little bit of love. And if you notice, whenever a baby is born and starts to be aware of their surrounding, it just seems like love, it just exudes from them. They're happy, they're joyful, except when they need their diaper change or need to be fed. But other than that, they're joyful and they're happy and they're enjoying the beginning of their life. And as the world continues upon them and as their life grows, they are filled with things. And then filled with a little more things. And then as they grow to become a young adult, they realize that they have the ability to give. So then they are emptied, and they give back. And they give back. Our challenges in our life is what we receive and what we give. Sometimes we feel like in the act of giving we are depleted. Sometimes when we empty into the world, fills another sacred vessel, and sometimes we make good things happen from that, and the giving of our love, our joy, and our compassion. Sometimes we empty ourselves in the act of listening, hugging, praying, just loving. And sometimes we choose to empty into the world or spoiled and unhealthy things that I mentioned earlier. At some point in our lives, a journey, we come to realize that we are left distracted and worn out, disconnected from our thoughts, with our emotions fragmented, and even in the midst of this misery, we live in some kind of twisted comfort. I think sometimes what happens is that we become familiar with something. It's kind of like if you're walking in your backyard and you step on a sticker and you immediately go, oh my gosh, wow, that hurts, pain, whatever, and you notice that there's something still in your foot, but you don't have a pair of tweezers, and you kind of just work with it because you got things to do throughout the day, and then the next couple of days, you kind of occasionally forget about it, and every once in a while, you'll feel like that little tinge of pain, and you're like, oh, there's that little splinter in my foot still. But you learn to find comfort with it. I think for whatever reason, maybe that's God's gift to us in some sense, that we are able to take the things around us and find a way to survive through it. Because survival is important. It gives us the ability to find another day to find reconciliation in our lives. It's challenging because sometimes that survival comes with a high price. Emotions, pain, tears, sorrow, confusion. For some of us, anger and frustration. For some of us, not having the ability to be our authentic selves through most of our life's journey. And that can weigh really hard on a lot of people. In my experience being at this church, I've been here for more than 10 years. I'm not exactly sure how long I've been here for, but how many? 15. 15, okay. I've met so many people, and in different parts of their spiritual and life's journey. And it's kind of a sad thing for me because some people have left this world just because their journey led them to another part of their life. Some have made choices to leave this world. And that's hard sometimes to be aware of. I was watching an episode, so I just recently got Hulu. Because I said I'm tired of paying hundreds of dollars, well, having to keep paying $100 to cable. And I said, and he just pays the bill, and I'm like, I just happen to notice Bill's making all right here. So I said, I'm going to get Hulu, and we cut our costs a lot. Anyway, found a show, it's called Please Like Me. Very interesting show out of Australia, but it's about this young man and his friends, so I guess they're called millennials, and it's about them experiencing their life and how they view the world through their eyes, which when you're in your late 40s and beyond, sometimes you tend to forget that when you were in the 20s, people were looking at your age, the people around you that were your age then, probably you're looking at these people the same way with that little odd kind of look like, why are you doing that? But anyway, this show is kind of interesting because it's about this young man. He ends up breaking up with his girlfriend, and the reason why she breaks up with him is because he's gay. And so then he's experiencing coming out and delving into his gaiety. And in the same process, his parents divorce, and his mother ends up going into a mental institution. And then she comes out, and she forms a friendship with this other person from a mental institution who happens to be a lesbian, and they're roommates. And they spend these wild, crazy adventures and stuff. And so anyway, the show is just kind of all focused about him and a little bit about her. And then all of a sudden, I was watching one of the last episodes this season, and he goes to visit his mom, and she's laying on the floor, and he's like, oh, she must have fell. He goes up to her, she's holding a letter in her hand, and you can tell that she's dead. And that was such an emotional episode for me, because By the way, the show's a comedy. I know it doesn't sound like it, but it is. And so it was interesting because she had made a choice to end her life. And what was really interesting is the episode before that, it seemed like she had no reason to. But that happens, we experience, as we create community and family and relationships in our lives, we meet people, and sometimes the people we meet, we don't understand them as much as they may not understand us, or their choices, or what leads them on the path that they're on. I think what was interesting about that was how the friends were there. You never, when people pass away, everyone tends to feel for them. I want to pray for you. I want to be there for you. Let me know if you need anything. If you need me to cook stuff, because I don't know what I think we're left with, not knowing what else to say. And so this episode kind of explained that these people. One of his best friends said, this is the most awkward moment, and I've never felt so utterly useless in my life as his friend. Because what do I say? So this is our experience. This is our life's journey. This is where the things in our life fill us, and we have to kind of work through it. The Bible tells us that we will come to know that we are spiritually dying or possibly spiritually dead. This is Ephesians 2:1. That we will not be able to know spiritual truth in 2 Corinthians 2:14. And that we will feel condemned and separated from God, John 3:18. Ultimately, we are surviving in this old stuff. Has anyone felt those things in their journey, their spiritual journey, that they felt disconnected from God? That they were spiritually dying, or you're feeling spiritually empty in your life's journey? Have you ever come to feel like this is you, and there's nothing left? We often ask ourselves, can this experience be different? Can we be reinvented? Will I ever learn?
Amen.
I don't know if all of you have done that. I've done that myself. But through Jesus Christ, God offers you, me, everyone here, a new beginning, a reboot, an opportunity to get unstuck. God offers us reconciliation through Jesus Christ.
Amen.
An opportunity to leave our old stuff behind. Just leave this behind. Through Jesus Christ, God offers us reconciliation with the gifts of transformation and renewal. I just happen to have this water to drink, but I'm going to treat it as this is my relationship with God. And so this is my old, this is my new.
Amen.
Again, the Bible tells us that when we take Jesus into our lives, our spirit is alive. Ephesians 2:5. We can understand spiritual truth and start to comprehend the things of God. And that's from Ephesians 3:17 through 19. I'm sure there's been many times when you're like, what does God have in store for me? Why am I on this path? I don't get it. Especially when I'm driving to work in traffic. But I guess I get it. I didn't really get it. But the Bible also tells us that we are connected and no longer do we experience condemnation. That's Romans 8:1. So I thought, this is amazing. Sometimes I don't know if any of you ever made an attempt just to spend time reading the Bible and really trying to get your footing with it. And then if you have, I know it's challenging. I know it's challenging for a lot of different reasons. One is, The scripture is in different translations, and sometimes the translation that you might have grown up with is something that doesn't speak to you, it's a language that you don't quite understand. I have a hard time understanding today's English. And so I need somewhere between the old and the new. And, but be assured that as you pray and you get closer to God, and you want to know these messages, that I think God will lead you into the right direction, whether it's an inspiration to get on Google and search for the right, version. Don't be surprised at how God can work in your life.
Amen.
Amen. So the messaging, or the scripture reading today was really interesting, because when Pastor asked me to help out with the series, and she initially gave me the scripture, which was 2 Corinthians 5, verse 17 only. And it reads, as Terry had asked you to help hold in your heart, anyone who is joined to Christ is a new thing, and the old is gone, and the new has come. And I thought to myself, how crazy is that? That the Bible is there with hundreds and hundreds of pages of stuff that we're trying to take into our lives, and we're trying to be fed. And then Pastor Judy says, well, here, look at this scripture, and it's just one line. And I go, this is really crazy deep for me. At first, I didn't think it was, and then I started to research it, and I started to pray on it, and started to think about it, and then I started to say, well, my brain works, I have to go and research it and how it affects other people's lives, and then it starts opening up, and I see the dynamic behind it, because my initial thought was it's all about transformation. And then I took a break from it. I said, okay, put it aside, let it just be where it's going to be, and let it float around my head and my heart, and then came back to it actually this morning. And then the message of reconciliation came into play. And I thought, how amazing is that we have the ability to bring relationships in our lives, people in our lives, a God that is in our lives, back to us. And in doing that act, we create transformation in our lives. But it comes at a point where we have to decide to let go of the old in our lives. Now, how challenging is that for so many people here? I think for a lot of LGBT people, I've seen this a lot, who are LGBT and Christian, is they come into these doors, they want to experience God in a new way. And as they're doing so, their heart is open, and they're creating a relationship that they hadn't had before. But at the same time, they're struggling, and they're trying to work through the way that God was interpreted to them prior to stepping through these doors. And it's hard, and everyone wants to react in such a way that's dramatic. I think we're in this world of drama. So it's like, well, screw that. I'm done with that. I'm this new person. I'm born again, if you want to call it that. That may work for you. But if it fails to work for you, instead of saying, well, God, that was your last chance, I'm out these doors, maybe look at it differently. Your experience with God, your relationship as it was formed with God, when you fully didn't understand it or felt like God's space in your life was hurting and harmful, maybe that was part of your journey that got you through these doors. And what's wrong with keeping that thought in your head? You could acknowledge you're old. You just don't have to live it. Okay? You just don't have to live it. But it's helpful to know where we come from and how we got where we are. It's educational if we give that messaging to other people. It helps for us to say, hey, we made the choices that made sense. I don't think you need to condemn your past and your history, but you need to just move from it and create a new future, where God is prominent in your life. And Jesus offers you salvation, reconciliation, and a knowing that you, as the person you are, You are a child of God.
Amen.
And sometimes these topics, these thought processes, the words that come from my mouth and from Pastor's mouth and Pastor Paul's mouth, sometimes they might seem a little lofty, a little fairy tale-ish, because sometimes we believe that the things that we see as magical and unusual and life-changing are things that we're not worthy of. But instead of saying we're not worthy of these things, say, what taught me to believe I wasn't worthy of these?
All right.
Amen. What led me to believe that God did not feel I was worthy of these things? I go through the Bible and I read all these messages, and people like, especially during Pride, during parade, people like to hold up signs saying, God hates fags, and, doesn't like the president, or, of course, a lot of us don't like the president, but every year they don't like the president, no matter who it is. So, and they're always holding these messages because, God's told them, God hates you. And it's your job to get in God's good graces. No matter how you try, he's still going to hate you. But the point of your life is to just keep trying. Well, that's inviting. I want to go to that party. Really? I mean, what is that messaging about? It's not about a relationship. It's not about finding peace, happiness, and joy through the experience of God that the love surrounding you is God, and is uplifting you, and is taking you somewhere. It's not about that. It's about something that demeans you. And I know that there's messaging in the Bible that kind of leads people to believe that we are not the master, we are the slave, that we are not worthy, we are not. But I also believe that God gives us the ability to create our own interpretation of what we read. And just as many of these people have made the interpretation that God hates you, but keep working at that relationship, we can have the interpretation that God loves us instead. And that God has given us resources and the ability to love ourselves as we love God. So as I'm reading the scripture, so the scripture that I put out there, I expanded upon it because it's more than this one line. That one line needed to be bold. But I thought it teaches us so many things. First of all, in reading the scripture, I find that as we allow ourselves to be joined to Christ, we are first of all transformed, as the scripture says. Anyone who joins to Christ is a new being, meaning we're transformed. The old is gone and the new has come. Then, as you continue to read, the scripture tells you that we are reconciled. All this is done by God, which means not by you. And I think that's the biggest challenge for us. It's like we want change in our life. We want to see new and interesting things happen. We want to be happy. And we wake up, and I do this a lot too, and I'm going to create my checklist. What's going to make me happy today? What can I do to make me happy? I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And then the end of the day, and it becomes like, that didn't work out. I didn't do half the stuff, and the stuff that I did do didn't pan out the way I expected it to. And the reason is because we are still in the mode that we can change ourselves. What God is telling us, or I should say, the messaging here is that God changes us. But we have to have trust in that messaging. How hard is it to have trust that you are no longer necessarily in charge of your destiny, which is not really completely true, but let's just say that. And instead, God is. Okay? So here's the disclaimer. You actually are in charge of your destiny. You chose to let God take the wheel. Jesus take the wheel, as it said. You made that choice to chill out and let God do it for you. But it's hard. I know it's hard. Coming from a person who's would be classified as a control freak, I know it's hard. Further in the scripture, who through Christ changed us from enemies into his friends. This is God's will. This is the reconciliation that makes friends into enemies. Or, as I like to say, bad I'm sorry, I said the other way around. Enemies into friends, excuse me. Or bad into good. So that person that really ticked you off, you have to look at them in a new light. Because I can almost guarantee you that when someone does something wrong to you, it's not because they intentionally did something wrong to you. It's because they're trying to work through something that's wrong in their own life. You just happen to be there. Okay? You just happen to be the trailer park on the path of the tornado. For lack of a better analogy, that's what I'm envisioning. And it happens, you know. But this is your opportunity to take the things that are bad and make them good. In doing so, we also learn that God gives us our ministry. This is like the most, I think, one of the most important factors of this is, you know, what's the point of transforming ourselves other than to feel good if we're not making a difference in whatever? If we're not making a difference in our own heart, if we're not making a difference to people here, all of you, to people in other countries, to the animals, to plant life, whatever, the earth, if we're not making a difference. So what happens here is God gives us a ministry. So instead of just saying, you are renewed with a purpose.
All right.
And we hear that in where it says, and gave us the task of making others his friends also, to share this message. This message that I found so valuable in my transformation process. To not just keep it to myself and be like, I found that. Bye. It's more like, look what I found. Here. Experience this with me. And we'll work through it. Some of us are real strong in our thought processes. And so the idea of just going like right into it and be like, I'm a new person, may not come to us right away. So, but we'll be there for one another. Further, God in this message says, our message is that God was making all human beings his friends through Christ. We come to know that we cannot do this without Jesus. So this does not happen without you taking Jesus into your life. Okay. And then when you do so, God has changed you. No longer then shall we judge anyone by human standards. God did not keep an account of their sins, which means forget. Let it go. Stop holding on to that old stuff. Have you ever heard that phrase, let go and let God?
Yes.
Now, I don't know if it had a lot of meaning or people just like to say, throw it out there, but think about it. Let go and let God.
It works.
Allows God's invitation to take a hold of you and allow yourself the freedom to experience change. All things are from God. Trust Jesus. And know that he is the key to God saving you. Amen. That's it.
All right.